sort of thing. Okay, I think one of the things we stop here is, so what we would expect, I think you have already gotten down there, by looking at this kind of a catchment, we would expect we are either at first order stream order 1 or stream order 2. And therefore we would expect, if you look, we would expect our V channels, because now this is absolutely area of big boulders, which means the water will need to go down and become something a lot of energy because of the cracking. Again, because of what you have seen, we'll expect most of the water going into the river, going into infiltration and subsurface flow. So we expect minimal TSS, we don't know. We expect a much lower ionic concentration, which are only leaching and mineralization of the rocks. We'll see what is the conductivity here. We compare to exactly what we got at Zigotic. And as we go down the profile, I say, we'll sample from here all the way up to our last station will be the lodge where we're staying. So we want to see what is the difference, but you could already see from the lodge the water was much clearer than even Zigotic, which means probably there's minimal disturbance, but let's see what we'll find out as we move down the gradient. So I think one of the most key aspects you missed in Joro is on vegetation, and therefore I think this is very key for you to understand the vegetation. But we are not sampling there, we are going there, but it's good to have a general overview. Yeah. We're going there. Yeah, we're looking for rivers, so can we sample from here? We have to know where the river is. So, Prof, maybe you can say something about the vegetation.
Yeah, okay, I will be very, very brief because Prof has already said some of the points that are in my brief. But this is the role of vegetation when we come to limnology. And as I was asking in the lecture, actually, do we need vegetation when we are studying limnology? What is its role? What is the role of that riparian vegetation? And you look all those other modules you heard of, whether it is with the fisheries, whether it is with the dealing with the invertebrates, everything is very much related with the vegetation because of the water cycle, how it influences other factors like the temperatures, water quality, and so on with the river. As she has said, this now when we look at the vegetation, looks slightly different from what we had along River Joro. But River Joro was exactly like what we are seeing here when we started this course, studying riparian vegetation along River Joro. This type of vegetation you see here, this is what was there at the first point, that is Zigotic. This the species that we are getting here. One of the major points, that's why we are coming all this way also, is to look at how vegetation changes. We find in the whole world, vegetation may be affected by latitude, the other factor by altitude. So where we are studying, we do not have that latitudinal effect. It's not so pronounced. But when we come to the altitude, we can see the differences. When we look at the vegetation, the difference in vegetation there is in two forms. One, the formation, the type of vegetation. The other one is species composition. The types here, we encounter three major types or forms of vegetation. One, before I go to the real type, what is factor, as I said, is the one is the altitude. The other main factor that influences that type of vegetation you get is rainfall. The rainfall within these high mountains increases from the low altitude. If you start from allowed 1,000 meters above sea level, it will increase until you come to allowed 3,000 meters. Then from there, it decreases. It decreases because of the temperature. And the vegetation, therefore, will respond accordingly. We are within what we call as Afro-montane vegetation or forest, because these are forests now. And if you are to see, if we had telescopic eyes, and if our mountain was very clear, you would see what is up there. It's completely different. Looks as like just grasslands, because that's what can be supported by the type of the rainfall that is falling there. So this one will be from mountain forest will go up to about 3,200 meters above sea level. Then it changes, and it is very clear if you are to go there. There is the area with that we call timberline. And there's a species we call Hagenia abyssinica. The moment you see that Hagenia abyssinica, you know you are living in the forest. Naturally, if there is no human interference, naturally. And then you go to the moorlands. And there you get to the area now we call as ericaceous belt. Yeah, and then no, within moorland now you get the bamboo. Bamboo will be within that. After you leave the timberline, that is the trees, the other species, the other plant that you get there is the bamboo. You're familiar with the bamboo. And it takes the big area, big forest, cloud the whole mountain. It's just like that. Then you go to that ericaceous belt with the three main genus, Erica, Philippia, and another one we call, I forget that one. The two, you can remember the two, Erica and Philippia. Okay? Yeah, the other one, the third one is Blackaria. You get the three in that area. Then after that, if you go up now, the rainfall is decreasing. It's decreasing now. And the temperature is also decreasing. The temperature, the effect of the temperature is again within the altitude. You find for every 100 meters you rise, the temperature decreases with 0.6 degrees Celsius. And that's why it reaches now to a freezing point up there. So as you leave that belt, then you come now to an area which is just dominated by the plant that you find in temperate countries. The grass, which we call the genus mainly Festuca and Aglostis. The two grasses that you find in temperate countries. There. The pass that you just after you reach him now, about 4,000 meters or 4.5 thousand meters above sea level. Very little vegetation you get there, other than like mosses. And the whole area is rocky. And then because of the temperature, that's where you expect the snow. It's only now because of the climate change, we are feeling it now here in Kenya, climate change. Because that mountain used to be snow-capped, yet the whole year, above 15,000 feet, it was just changing the level. During cold months, above that, if the whole of that area would be snow-capped, and when it is very dry, then it would just melt.
And that's why Mount Kenya is actually one of the global indicators of climate change.
Yeah.
It's being used as a global indicator for climate change.
Yeah.
So you read a lot, you find them saying the snow cap in this one in
exactly.
Kilimanjaro.
At the Kilimanjaro. There is the same effect happening with the Kilimanjaro. Remember, this is the second highest mountain in Africa. Kilimanjaro is the highest. But we are having the same effect. The level of that snow is now, the amount also is decreasing tremendously. So when you get it, it's just the glaciers sometimes in the valleys, right? And that, remember, even that snow and the glaciers there, they have a lot of effect on the streams, the amount of water that we get. Because during the hot months, that's the one that it would melt and then sustain the flow.
During the dry season.
During the dry season. And that's why we are getting now the dry valleys. Some of the river people are complaining.
That this river, people are complaining, how long was it? It was on TV.
Yeah.
Where the communities were having hands because there was hardly no water in the river.
Exactly.
So it's just a month.
Just a month ago. Last month people were complaining. People were saying that they are taking several days to scoop water from some of the simple wells they were scooping around the riverbed. But now there is sufficient. But initially before we had this serious impact of climate change, these rivers were permanent. So some of the old permanent rivers are becoming now seasonal. So with that vegetation type, you get from there, then you come now to the composition. And I said, I mentioned some of the species that we encountered along River Joro. And one, I said, you check like this species, these Potocarpus. And these are natural distribution. We have two species.
Do you see any species, any Potocarpus in River Joro? I don't think there's any left. Anyway, they can see it here.
Yeah, they can see it here.
It used to be
There used to be a lot of them. And on the higher altitude, you get what we call latifolia, like this one. The leaves are slightly broader. Then you go down, you find another species, falcatas, Podocarpus falcatas, with the smaller leaves, like the one next to the hotel.
The one that was broken?
Yeah, the one that was broken there. So it's very good, as I said, to check, to keep on checking these distributions, because they are natural. It's only when you interfere with the natural factors or distribution. The another species that we got there is what we call as this, what did I get? Olea africana. Yeah, there is Olea castelli on the higher altitude. Then you go to lower altitude, Olea africana, although we call it now Olea europea, subspecies africana. Okay? Let me see if there is another one. Anyway, when we get other indicators, we will show you along the river. The main factor, that's why we are coming here, when we get intact vegetation, is look at the layers. We discussed this in the lecture. If it is not disturbed, you expect 5 layers. There is the main canopy, and very few species that will grow above that, which we call as the emergence. Then below that you get the other trees, which have not reached the main canopy. You have the climbers, then you have the shrubs, you have the herbs, and the ground cover. And what did we say? That helps because it intercepts the rainfall, so that it does not follow with that force, where it would cause the splash and cause the runoff.
Or the compactness of the soil, as we said.
Yes.
So this is what we are talking about, like water interception.
Mm.
When the rain comes, it finds that one, then it is stopped. So the
At
energy is
different
left,
levels.
it sprinkles down, so that by the time it gets to the ground, it just
it has lost a lot of its energy.
infiltrates, and
Yeah.
therefore minimize, hardly have any surface runoff.
Yeah, and then we even looked at the role of each species or group of plants when it comes to control of runoff. The grasses, because the fibrous roots, they are very good in holding that soil together and the water together. And when we had the trees, they are very good in holding the river banks. All these, we talked even in
And the roots
like
also,
the shrubs.
the roots produce space for
The
water to
prop roots.
infiltrate.
Yeah, which you will hold that.
Infiltrate.
So the water now will infiltrate and it will take its time. By the time it passes through and emerges on the mainstream, you will find it's not at the same time. And that is that sustains the flow of the river, because it will just be flowing at different levels, at different rates. And then we started getting what Professor was showing you along the road, all those springs. And we said that's why the need of leaving the whole of the headwater covered with the forests, because that's the source of that. The lower courses, they are just dependent on what is happening on the upper courses. The same with the nutrients. There is help in the holding them, so that not everything is lost into the river to be wasted in some other places. Okay. What else we can add here? I think that's all.
So just maybe to mention why today we are not saying the mountain is because of what he talked about, because there is a very high moisture content, because it has been raining, and therefore because of the low temperatures, so you have more of a mist, and therefore that's why I hope we'll be able to see the mountain. We may not be able to see the clear mountain like if you came during in February during the dry season when the water content, because that temperature condenses the water, and therefore you have mists which is surrounding at that particular level. So it's a natural phenomenon for this time of the year. So we may not see that. We may be lucky if you may sometimes you check very early in the morning. I don't know whether it happened, but in most of the time during the rain season, it will be covered much most of the time, especially on the upper part. So the water is condensing mist, as you say, and that's why you find the hydrophytes. I mean, they are not hydrophytes. What do you call them? The ones which grow in dry areas. Because even if it is raining, the xerophytes, even if it is raining, the water is crystallized, so it's not available to the vegetation. So the vegetations are almost behaving exactly the same way the vegetation will behave in the desert. That is really the reason. And I think maybe the other one, Professor, you could have mentioned is the adaptation by the leaves in terms of the leaf size and the pine leaves as they go down. We expect them to change from much broader to the smaller one. Maybe you can just mention.
Yeah, that's exactly when I said we have 3 main areas here of the vegetation. Afro Mountain, where we are. We expected, if you look at the trees in general, they have broader leaves. But when you go now to the upper zones, you find because of that low rainfall, we expect that area, they start now starting to conserve and reduce the surface area for transpiration. So the leaves become reduced in size. And still when you go higher, where you have those dendrocinacea and the gentle area, you find they become succulents. And the succulents, you expect them to find them like in desert areas where we have no rainfall, so that they can store the little moisture that they get there. And then we say, we find here, we get those succulents because they have less moisture. And those are cold places. And when you go to the dry desert, we have also some other succulents. And they are storing water because they also have less moisture. So what is the problem here? Down there we don't have rainfall, and up there we do not have sufficient rainfall. But it's a cooler area, this is a dry area. Why are we not getting sufficient moisture from the, why are the plants behaving that way? Anybody? Sometimes, as you go up there,
like this up there,
Mm-hmm.
because the soil is more permeable, because it's more dense for the water running.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you remember the plants have to get water, moisture from the soil, isn't it? Yeah, it may lay on this other side, but if it is taken away through runoff, it will not be sufficient. But up there, it may be there, it may remain there, but again, they cannot, if it is frozen, they cannot take it. So it will see, yeah, it will be crystal. So they cannot absorb that. So they will still be water deficient, and they have to adapt for such features. Then look at what would you say, like the economic values. As we started down there, before we came where you have the natural forests, we found those plantations with exotic species. That's the best economic practice that humanity should do. If they have been cleared, then you grow those forests for reforestation. But you're not going to grow maize and beans.
Which is what we saw in
What we saw in the other in Joro, isn't it? Yeah, because even the climatic conditions, they are not conducive for maize and beans. Maize will not tolerate usually temperatures below 13 degrees Celsius per annum. And you grow it there, then it will take more than 1 year. And you find you not get sufficient food because of the time factor. Maize, like in Kenya, is supposed to be grown maybe in 6 months if it takes a longer period. And the other place it takes even 3-4 months. So if it takes more than 1 year, you still be in short of food. Yeah, while waiting it for it to grow. But now if you can convert into forest, you are not only going to harvest those tree products, but you are helping the whole country, not even the country, the global effect from that conservation.